But today we have Tony with us today. So Tony, please take it away, brother.
All right. Thanks for the introduction, Anthony. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys. As I was mentioning earlier, I'm a sales trainer at Enphase. I also do some technical training. So I do teach installers how to correctly wire up the system. So I've actually gotten my hands on the equipment a lot and assist in that area as well. For before I joined Enphase for many years, I did basically exactly what you guys do. So I'm not, coming from like an air conditioning sales background. I know the exact conversations that you have with customers, what homeowners want to hear, what kinds of things are important to them. So hopefully this will be a really good, useful training for you guys. All right, let me share my screen. It seems like I use a different online meeting tool every day, so I'm gonna find where to do that. There it is. Okay. All right, I'm going to turn off my camera just for the presentation, then I'll bring it back on at the end. So what I'd like to do today is spend about maybe 10 minutes on the Enphase energy system or Enphase storage value proposition and some of the key features and benefits. And then we're going to spend another 15, 20 minutes or so just on the concept of, or the topic of sizing a battery based on what that customer needs or wants to use that battery for and how much energy they consume in their home. All right, so can you see the slide that says Powur training slides? Okay, great. Got the thumbs up there. Okay, so the basic value prop of the Enphase energy system is that it's an all-in-one system. And this goes on to say with the safety, power, and reliability we've been waiting for. But what is kind of special about the Enphase system that it enables many of its more advanced features is that it is an all-in-one system, meaning the solar microinverters and the batteries with built-in microinverters and the smart switch and a few other ancillary components, they're all made by Enphase. And this is different from the way that many manufacturers do it, namely Tesla, Franklin Whole Home, which you may have heard about recently as well. Those solutions are meant to be more universal, like you take that Powerwall and you can attach it to any kind of solar PV system. It's nice in a sense to have that flexibility, but they don't have the benefits of the all-in-one system because the systems don't speak the same language. And a Powerwall controls the solar by brute force, basically can only turn it on or off. It does not have granular control. With the Enphase system, the battery can really, actually the whole system can really control the output of the solar panels. And that means the system is going to be on more frequently and the homeowner is going to get more energy out of their PV system because it's not going to be turned off by the battery nearly as much. Along the same lines, the benefit of an all-in-one system is that there's only one throat to choke, so to speak. If you have a problem with a system, whether it's with solar or the battery or monitoring, you only have one number to call to get support from Enphase Energy. And our support times, as far as the industry goes, are very, very short. We're actually less than 2 minutes today. And I know some of our competitors are in the hours, if you can even get a hold of somebody. And of course, that applies to warranty as well. So if anything goes wrong with the system, it's easy to figure out what it is by contacting Enphase support, and then much easier to make a warranty claim because it's clear where the issue is going to be or where the issue is with the system. So another benefit of the Enphase system is that it all works on what we call a distributed architecture. And when we say that, we mean that we have a microinverter for each solar panel. And with our battery system, we have multiple microinverters built into each battery. And the advantage there is redundancy. And if one of the microinverters in our battery goes out, it fails for some reason, it doesn't take the whole battery and the whole system out of commission. So in this example on the right, you can see we've got 12 microinverters in our typical battery. If one of those 12 does happen to fail, the battery still is able to output 92% of its power. So the point here is that it doesn't create an emergency situation for that homeowner where their system is completely out because their inverter failed. Our system is also designed to really be modular. A homeowner can have anywhere from 3 kilowatt hours of storage capacity all the way up to 40 with any combination of three. And I know Powur has certain guidelines. You don't sell every possible menu option under the sun, but you do offer the IQ Battery 3 as the starter option. And then you offer the 2 10s, 3 10s, and 4 10s. So basically multiples of 10. But the advantage there is that once the system is set up and has at least one battery connected to it, it's really easy to add additional batteries in the future. A lot of people might have a budget in mind of say 15 or 20,000. That'll get them one of our 10 kilowatt hour batteries. And say that after 1 year of experiencing a few blackouts, they decide they want more. It's really easy with our system to add on another 10 kilowatt hours to their existing system. So again, we're offering many options here. So you can start with a very small battery if that's what the homeowner wants, just for their essential items like a fridge and their internet and TV. Or if a homeowner wants whole home backup, they want to back up everything in their house, including all the big loads, then they can get up to 40 kilowatt hours of capacity and have a lot more power from that battery as well for starting those appliances. Now, a question you might face from time to time is, what's the difference between a DC coupled system and an AC coupled system? These are kind of the two big categories of battery storage options today. The Enphase system is an AC coupled system. That means that you have inverters on the solar array, and you also have inverters connected to the battery system. So essentially, you've got two inverter systems that are converting DC to AC, and that AC power is the coupling. DC coupled systems, SolarEdge is the most familiar example. They have one inverter that works for both the solar and the batteries. Now, the difference that you'll hear from people that are promoting DC coupled is that it's a more efficient system. There are fewer losses because you're not converting the electricity from DC to AC and back to DC as many times compared to an AC coupled. But what they don't talk about, which is the big advantage of an AC coupled system, is that you have much more power available from the AC coupled system when the solar is producing power. And the reason for that is, again, you have independent inverter systems for solar and storage, and all that power that's available from both of those sources adds together. Storage power adds to the solar power. With DC coupled systems, you have, again, that one inverter that's handling both. So that inverter has an inherent built-in limit to how much power it can output. We're getting a little bit technical right off the bat here, but this slide is meant to illustrate that with an Enphase system with 20 kilowatt hours compared to a DC coupled system with 20 kilowatt hours, the amount of peak power available with all that extra solar power is up to 96 amps. So that means that customer during the daytime when the sun's shining, they can run their biggest appliances without a problem. Their air conditioners, their pool pumps, all those kinds of things. With a DC coupled system, they're going to have a much lower amount of available power during the daytime, that is. Another advantage of the all-in-one nature of the Enphase system is that the app monitors every aspect of the system. You're not going to have a one app for your solar system and another app for your battery system. Homeowners, all of us, we like to have as few apps and the most effective apps that we can, right? So if you can have one app that will show you all the information you want to know about your solar panels and your battery, and potentially other items as well, like an integrated generator, all that's going to be present on the Enphase app. If you guys have been selling other battery brands, I'm sure these smart profiles or these operating modes will look familiar to you, but it's good to quickly review these. So the Enphase system, battery system, can be set into one of these three modes. And those are full backup. In full backup, the battery is basically only used if the system gets disconnected from the utility grid. By definition, it's going to remain always full, so that if there's an outage, that customer has a full battery to get them through the longest period of time disconnected from the grid. The second option here is savings mode. Savings mode is designed for customers that have time of use rates where there's a significant difference or delta between the peak rate and the off-peak rate. And we call it savings mode because typically the peak rates are in the evening. And I'm in California and probably the same around the country. Peak rates start at either 4 p.m. or 5 p.m., depending on which option you have. So the idea with savings mode is during the daytime when the system is producing more power than the home needs, that excess goes to charge the battery. And then when the peak period starts, say 4 p.m., it switches and the home uses the energy in the battery instead of buying expensive electricity from the utility at those peak rates. And then the third option is self-consumption. So self-consumption is ideal for customers that have a crappy deal with the utility where they don't get they don't get a decent amount of credit when they backfeed power to the utility. So if the utility is not giving you anything at all, or maybe just a couple of cents, what's the point of backfeeding, right? So with self-consumption, you charge the battery up and the system prioritizes use of solar energy first, then battery energy, and then as a last resort, grid energy. It's only going to pull from the grid if the battery and the solar system can't provide that power. And I'll just touch briefly on this because I know that Spencer's going to cover it in more detail next month, but with NEM 3.0 in California, customers are going to want to either be on self-consumption mode instead of savings mode, or Enphase is working on some additional options that are really customized for NEM 3.0 because it's a different kind of structure altogether. With NEM 3.0, the amount of credit you get varies hour by hour. It's not based on the peak or off-peak rates. It's based on what it's worth to the utility. And it can be anywhere from less than a penny up to almost $3 or over $3 in some utilities. So that's a little bit complicated. So it's taking us, our engineers are currently working on a customized solution to really take advantage of NEM 3.0. But again, more on that later. It's designed to be a fully automated system. So the homeowner doesn't have to lift a finger to do anything to the system in order to go into backup mode if there's a blackout and then reconnect to the grid. The first thing that you see here is Storm Guard. So Storm Guard is an optional thing that the customer can turn on in the app if they are in savings or self-consumption mode. And the idea is if you turn on Storm Guard while you're in savings mode, if there's a storm that's coming your way that the National Weather Service thinks is going to cause a blackout, Enphase is tapped into the National Weather Service, and Enphase will actually switch your system over to backup mode so that the battery will get fully charged and stay fully charged while there's that higher risk of a storm shutting down power. And then once the risk of the storm passes, then you can, the system's going to automatically switch you back over to that other mode and take you out of the full backup priority. We also do over-the-air updates. So sometimes we have to update software, firmware, and equipment. Doesn't require a technician to go to the site. It's all just done over the internet. And the last point I think I already mentioned. So it's meant to provide a seamless backup experience for the homeowner. And the transition times between off-grid and on-grid are so fast that the homeowners usually don't even hear or notice flickering lights or have to reset clocks or anything. Let's talk a little bit about the safety of the battery. So the battery chemistry that Enphase uses is different than most of our major competitors. Tesla, for example, uses what's called NMC, or nickel manganese cobalt chemistry. And we use lithium iron phosphate. Now, both of these are lithium ion. They're in that category of lithium ion, but our chemistry, lithium iron phosphate, or LFP, is a much safer battery chemistry. These batteries can be crushed, punctured, and they're not going to catch on fire. They're not going to have what we call thermal runaway. NMC batteries have a history of occasionally, due to battery flaws or external forces like a puncture or damage, they can have thermal runaway and have an uncontrollable fire, basically. So, when you're talking about safety, you don't want to scare customers away. Obviously, you have to be careful with this conversation, but if there's an opportunity to point out that Enphase uses the safest chemistry on the market that is never going to cause a fire in your home, I think that's a nice selling point. Enphase also has more sophisticated load control than many of our competitors. In fact, currently, probably all of our competitors. Now, the advantage of load control is that in a given home, the homeowner might want to be able to have backup power to certain larger electrical loads that the system may not be able to handle at all times. As we talked about with an Enphase AC coupled system, during the daytime, you've got all that extra power from solar. You could run larger appliances during the day, but then at nighttime, you may not have the power just from the battery to run your air conditioner. So the load controller is an additional component that's installed, and we can operate in a few different modes. You can set it up so that the large loads will instantly be disconnected when the system transitions to off-grid. You can also set it up to allow those loads to have power if there's a generator that's coupled and is operating in parallel. With our system, the generator power is also additive to the solar and battery. So again, with the generator connected, you'll have that extra power that gives you the ability to run more larger loads. And then lastly is battery mode. So battery mode is designed to basically protect the energy storage of the battery if there's a load that'll drain it very quickly. So by that, I mean, you can set battery mode so that if the battery drains down to 30%, it's going to shut off that load so it doesn't get drained all the way down to zero. So the point here is that there's a lot of flexibility, and the benefit to the homeowner is more resiliency. The system is going to be, by shedding these large loads, it's going to preserve the kind of integrity of the microgrid. You're going to have fewer overload situations, and you're also going to prevent that battery from getting totally drained down. Generator integration. So I touched on this, but these diagrams are helpful to explain the difference. So just about everybody else in the industry is the diagram on the right. If there's a generator that's, quote, doing air quotes here, quote, integrated into their system, all it is that means it's connected to a transfer switch. And that means that it's either the generator or solar and storage, but not both together. So it's not truly coupled because they're not working together. And the way those systems work is when the storage system drains down to a critically low state of charge, it will switch over to the generator. The homeowner is going to have a blackout for a few seconds or a few minutes, depending on the type of generator setup. And then the generator is going to kick on. And typically, that generator is going to stay on until the utility grid is back up. So imagine that happens to a homeowner on the first day and they have a 4-day power outage. For those 4 days, they're going to be running off the generator, even though their solar and storage is just sitting there perfectly ready to start up and start working again. So now let's look at the left side diagram, the Enphase method here. So with Enphase, the generator is just an additional AC power source. And by additional, I mean on top of the solar and the batteries, the generator connects into the same smart switch, or what we call our IQ system controller. And that means that the system has the power available from all three whenever that generator is running. There's some additional interesting features as well. The generator can be used to recharge the batteries if, say, for example, the solar panels are not producing very much power that day because of a lot of cloud cover or smoke in the air. Or if it's installed in a place that has a lot of tall trees and in the winter, the trees are shading the solar array. That generator can come on and power the home and recharge the batteries up to a certain level. And then the generator will turn off and the home can run off the battery power instead of having the noise pollution and the air pollution from that generator constantly. Okay, just a few more details. So the generators that we are compatible with have to be 240 volt standby, permanent standby generators. It says here or portable. That is not correct. That's an error on the slide. So please ignore that part. They have to be permanent standby generators, not portable. And we're compatible with the biggest brands like Generac and Kohler. And if you want to learn more, please reach out to me or Spencer. We can send you what we call a tech brief, which is just a longer document that has a lot of information specific to generators and a list of the generators that are compatible. All right, so that is the kind of the overview and value prop. So let me just pause there for a second before I move on to the sizing section to see if you guys have any questions.
Looks like Doug asked, what is the load controller device called?
It's a very clever name. It's called the IQ load controller.
All right. Fair enough.
Yeah, I know when we talk about the feature, it's called load control. The actual device is the IQ load controller. So almost the same name. Yeah.
Straightforward. I love it.
Just realized I don't think my headset's even working. I'm just talking through the computer. But you guys can hear me okay, right? All right, I'll take
Yes,
that
sir.
At what point are we making the decision for that IQ load controller? Let's say, we decided let's do that. How do we get it? Is it in solo for us? We talk to the customer and then say, okay, we want to do the load controller, the IQ load controller. Where does that come in?
Are you talking about how you decide if a customer needs one, or how you quote it? I could answer the first question.
Okay. All right.
So-
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so basically, you would want to sell an IQ load controller with a battery if there are loads on that battery that will be greater than the battery can support by itself without solar. So the main thing there is that, say that the home is running off solar, I'm sorry, running their air conditioner in the afternoon on a summer day, or in the evening, that's probably better, say 6 p.m. And there's a power outage. Our system will disconnect from the grid and attempt to keep all those loads running. But if the battery can't support that air conditioner, the system's going to collapse and power is going to go out for the homeowner. The system's going to restart. And after a few minutes, that air conditioner is going to come back on again, and boom, it's going to collapse again. So it's a very bad experience for the homeowner. So let me just repeat that. So the time that you want to definitely recommend a load controller is if that customer has a load that's backed up in their essential loads panel that's too much for the battery to handle by itself.
What if it's a whole house?
The rule applies whether it's whole house or partial home. But maybe what you're asking is if the battery is sized to be able to support all the loads in the home. If that's the case, then you may not need a load controller at all. If you have like 40 kilowatt hours of storage, that's a lot of power. I mean, that's plenty of power to start just about any large appliance that a homeowner has.
So I need a load controller on this job then. I'm just realizing that. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, no worries.
Hey Tony, how is that load controller functionality different than the load controller through the actual app itself?
So no, the app, the load control setting or part of the app, that controls how the load controller is going to behave. So it controls the settings for how the load controller behaves. So as I mentioned earlier, the load controller can be set to disconnect loads automatically. It can also be set to disconnect loads when the battery gets to a low state of charge, or it can be set to disconnect loads if a generator turns off. So it really just kind of depends specifically. This is kind of it's a fairly complicated topic. We could probably spend a whole hour on load control. But I think the main use for load control is the most basic mode, where the customer has some large loads that the battery can't support just alone, but they want to have the ability to use those larger electrical loads during times when the solar is contributing and helping out, because at those times it can easily support those larger loads.
Perfect.
All right, so this is a good segue to the sizing, because if you size the battery properly for all the loads, then maybe you don't need the load controller. All right, so let's go through some of the key electrical concepts when it comes to sizing storage. The first is energy. So when we use this term energy, we're talking about essentially how much energy is being consumed over time, or how much energy a battery can store. Analogy that I think helps make it make sense is it's like the size of the gas tank in a sense. Energy capacity in kilowatt hours is similar to how much gas you can put in a 10-gallon gas tank. The larger the battery capacity, the more energy. And the amount of energy you have, that relates to basically how long that battery is going to last, whether it's 2 hours or 10 or 20 hours. But the same electricity demand is happening with a small battery and a large battery. The large battery, of course, is going to last a lot longer. So our systems, we usually design systems so that the homeowner will have enough power to get them through the night, so that the next day the solar system can recharge the battery. So ideally, you want to size the battery to last about 12 to 16 hours. The next one is power. Now, it's pretty common for people to interchange the terms power and energy, or the electrical terms kilowatt or kilowatt hour. So energy, again, is how much energy can be stored in a battery and how long the battery will last. Power relates to what's the battery capable of starting? What kinds of appliances is it capable of running without being overloaded? So power, another way to think of it is that power is an instantaneous thing. It's how much energy is being delivered at a moment in time. And then lastly, we have surge. Now, surge relates to certain types of appliances that demand a lot of additional power for 1 or 2 seconds when they first start up. And the batteries can output a little bit higher amount of power for a few seconds to help start these appliances that have a surge power requirement. So Spencer put this together, and he put together a few interesting examples. He calls this back of the envelope sizing. So if you're not really sure where to start with when it comes to the size of the battery, say you're the first person the homeowners talk to and they just have no idea what size they need, a simple way to kind of figure that out is to take the average kilowatt hours per month. In this example, it's 800 divided by the number of days in a month, so about 30. That gets you about 40 kilowatt hours per day. Now, that doesn't mean you need 42 kilowatt hours of storage, because for a large portion of the day, the sun's shining and the solar system is producing the power that's feeding into the home. So the homeowner, the size of the system is determined by basically how much energy that customer needs when the solar system is not working. So we have a few different examples here. And I think we give these few examples because it just depends on the homeowner's usage profile. Some homeowners use a lot more energy at nighttime. Say the whole family comes home from school or work in the evening and uses a lot of energy. Some homeowners, like families without kids that work all day long during the day, they might use a lot more energy during the daytime than they do in the evening. But anyways, let's take a look at these examples here. So if we have 42 kilowatt hours of consumption on an average day times a half, divided by 2, that'll give us about 21 kilowatt hours that they would need to have 100% coverage through the night. That would be 2 of our IQ Battery 10s. And the next example is if that customer used more energy in the evening than your average home. So if they use a little more energy in the evening, then they would need a little bit larger battery as well. All right, so I think I'm going to move on from this slide because I think you get the basic idea. Now, All right, so that is, again, is energy capacity, sizing the battery to last that homeowner through the night until the sun comes up the next day and can recharge the battery. The other factor we need to take into consideration when sizing is the power of the battery. Now, each of our IQ battery 10s connects into a 20 amp circuit. That basically means that that battery can handle any appliance that can plug into a standard 20 amp, 120 volt circuit. So a couple of examples here with an IQ battery 10, we would recommend backing up somewhere around 4 to 6 circuits. And we recommend only backing up circuits with a single IQ battery 10 that are typical 15 to 20 amp circuits, either plug loads like electrical outlets or things like lights that are running off of 15 or 20 amp 120 volt circuits. The reason for that is because an IQ battery 10 doesn't really have enough power to support any 240 volt loads. It's not exactly that black and white, but in general, if you put a 240 volt appliance like a kitchen range or an electric water heater or air conditioner on a single IQ battery 10, it's likely going to cause it to shut down. So if you're powering any larger loads, you want to make sure that you have at least 2 of our IQ battery 10s for at least 20 kilowatt hours of capacity and more power. So if you had 2 of our IQ battery 10s, that's what we call an IQ battery 20. Then you can power essentially 30 to 40 amp circuits. If you have circuits that are over 40 amps, like some electric water heaters or air conditioners would be over 40 amps, then you would want to shed that load or just go with a larger battery that has enough capacity for it. And here we have just a few additional examples showing the different battery size options we have. So 10, 20, 30, and then 40 kilowatt hours as the largest battery that we have. So the continuous power or current is listed here, up to 64 amps with the IQ battery 40 or 96 amps surge for 10 seconds. So again, for those appliances that demand power, a lot more power when they first start, like air conditioners and pumps, that's where that surge power is really handy because it can deliver 96 amps for up to 10 seconds to help start those larger loads. And on the right, we have the current, electrical current translated into the circuit breakers that you may see inside the main panel. So an IQ battery 10 could power anything that's connected to a 20 amp circuit. IQ battery 20 could power anything that's on a 40 amp circuit and so forth. So it's useful when you're trying to figure out these calculations to understand the relationship between volts and amps, because usually when we're talking about energy consumption and power consumption, we're talking about watts, right? Watts is the term that we use for power. And power is the formula that you want to use is voltage times current, or amps, is how I get to power. And you can change this formula by moving things around. I'm sorry, so here we have the electrical terminology and gosh, I'm sorry, drawing a blank. So at the top we have basically the electrical terms, and then below that we have the technical terms for for power and voltage and current, etc. So the term that we use for power is watts. Here we have voltage on both. Voltage is basically the pressure behind the electrical current, how much force there is pushing that current through the wire. And then when we talk about current, the term is amps or amperage. All right, I'm going to kind of breeze through this. I don't know that we need to get it this much in the weeds right now. All right, so you can see the watt reading on the meter sometimes. So if you're curious how much power something is uses, but you don't have any measuring tools or watt meter or anything like that, you can look at the wattage being used on the meter and turn that appliance on and look at the difference between before and after. So in this example, with the air conditioner on, the wattage went from 698 all the way up to 4,297 watts. So instantly the home is using, what is that, like 7 or 8 times more power than it was before the air conditioner turned on. And if you want to translate that into amps to determine what the right battery is, you essentially just divide the wattage of that large appliance by 240 volts, and that'll tell you how many amps that draws. So it's 17.9 amps. That means you're going to have, for your configurations, you're going to have at least 2 IQ battery 10s in order to output that 17.9 amps. All right, so one of the big loads that is really considered a critical load or an essential load for homeowners, that's a challenging load, is an air conditioner. Air conditioners, as I mentioned, they have motors running the compressors, and they have sometimes, especially older models, can have a really large spike in demand when they first start up, and that can collapse a microgrid. So this takes a little time to really fully understand, but once you get it, it's going to be really useful for helping you size the systems correctly. So when you look at the outdoor unit for an air conditioner system, there's going to be a placard or a label on that air conditioner that's going to have a lot of numbers. And you want to get these 2 numbers off that label. They're labeled RLA, which stands for running load amps. That's how much current that device uses continuously when it runs. And the other term is LRA, which stands for locked rotor amps. And that is basically how much current it uses for a couple of seconds when it first starts. We also call that surge current. So try to remember those, RLA and LRA. And I've got actually an example of a label in a second here as well. Now there's a device called a soft starter that we highly recommend using when you're trying to back up an air conditioner. And the whole point of a soft starter is to reduce the amount of current for that very brief, like 1 or 2 second period when that device starts up. And they can be really effective with a proper pairing with an air conditioner. This device can reduce the amount of current for that surge demand by 60%. And that's huge, because without one of these, you could potentially have to sell somebody 40 kilowatt hours of storage. But with one installed, you could sell them 20 kilowatt hours, and it would still be able to start that air conditioner. So these typically cost about $500 to purchase and install. I don't know what how Powur factors this in, but basically, it's going to give you a lot more flexibility when offering a battery to a homeowner. You can offer them a smaller battery if you're using a soft starter. Okay, so this is an example of an air conditioning nameplate that's on the actual air conditioning unit. And here you can see we've got RLA on the lower left of 9.9. So this air conditioner uses 9.9 amps when it's running continuously. And the LRA is to the right, it says 60. So it uses 60 amps for a second or two when it first starts up. So as you can see, there's a big difference, 6 times the amount of current for a second or two. So it's really important to factor that in. And going back to this soft starter, so if you did install a soft starter on this air conditioner, instead of 60 locked rotor amps or a 60 amp surge, it would be somewhere in the range of around 30. So about half the amount of startup current. So again, you could have a much smaller battery to power this air conditioner if you have a soft starter. And this is just another example of an air conditioner compressor here. Now, sometimes a homeowner may be in the market for replacing their large appliances as well. It might make sense to replace that really old, inefficient air conditioner instead of buying another $20,000 or $30,000 worth of batteries, right? So I don't know if your company offers additional like replacement for appliances, or if you partner with HVAC companies that can do that. That is something that you may want to discuss with the homeowner as well. Another option on the market is the span panel. So the span is a quote smart electrical panel where every single circuit is metered and controllable through the span app. And as far as I know, span is pretty universally compatible with battery storage systems, so that if the system does go into backup operation, the span panel can be set up to basically instantly disconnect any of the larger electrical loads, or really any loads in the entire home that are not essential to the homeowner. So span panel can eliminate the need to have a separate essential loads panel. They're not cheap. I mean, they're probably going to be like $4,000 or $5,000 to add on to the solar system. But if you've got a homeowner that really wants those bells and whistles and wants total control over all the circuits, you could include the span panel, and then you would not need to include the load controller, because the span is basically a very sophisticated and comprehensive load controller. All right, well, that is actually all the slides that I have for you guys. So I'd love to just open it back up to Q&A, and I can rewind and pull up any of the slides that we went through.
Yeah, I just seen a couple questions come through and a couple comments I wanted to make real quick, and then Doug, go ahead afterwards. But as far as the soft start, yeah, we've sold them in the past. I know it is kind of just like market specific and installer specific. It just kind of depends which crew that will affect pricing, or if they can even do it. So make sure you're just communicating with your project manager with the sold system to make sure that it's possible, or whatever the price is. So last time we did one was in South Carolina with our battery backup system, and yeah, it was a fairly easy process to make sure that got covered. And then Bo did mention about the span panel. I guess he heard from Enphase or someone in some department that that they're not compatible with Enphase.
So I think the message or the response they got, they're probably wondering if they can control, like if they're truly integrated, and they're not.
Okay.
The span panel cannot be controlled by the Enphase app.
Right.
But I believe that there's a way that the span panel can detect when it's disconnected from the grid. I'm not an expert in this area, so let me try to get some additional information and get back to you. But I think that they can work together. It's just that they're not truly integrated, because it's not an Enphase product. We're not able to tap into the span panel with our technology and control it.
Right.
But it still can be useful as a load shedding device.
Right. Okay. And I do see
I was gonna say, when I checked, I emailed Enphase support, and that's what they said, it wasn't compatible. And then I checked with our support, and they also said it wasn't compatible. So
okay,
they don't speak, but you can still.
I could be wrong. So I promise I'll discuss with Spencer. There's a reason he put this slide in the deck, so he probably has some information on it.
He meant to put an X through it. Yeah, he just forgot to do that.
I hope not. Yeah.
Yeah. You're all fans. Great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I do have a question. If you all right, say the customer does not want a battery at this particular time, so you give them the microinverters and the Enphase inverter and all of this stuff, and do you guys come out and just install batteries outside of Powur?
No, Enphase is only a manufacturer. We don't do any installation except for like beta systems and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, so there's no one that you know of even that just installs batteries. You have to couple it with the solar system. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, the Enphase batteries are only compatible with Enphase microinverter systems.
Right, I get that. Yeah,
Okay.
I get that. But we, like with
Yeah.
power, if they wanted to add a battery, power's not going to just go out and add a battery. I don't even think Tesla does it anymore. So I was just trying to figure out,
Oh,
leave them set up to be battery capabilities.
yeah.
Is there anyone that will come out and just install a battery down the road?
Yeah. Anthony, maybe make a note to ask Spencer about that, because he knows all the installers in, you know,
right.
all the regions, where he can connect you with an Enphase rep that would know installers who would be willing to just do a battery and not solar.
I think the main thing with that, and I have contacts that are contractors, and as does Bo, as does Dana. I think the main thing with that is it's just not enough margins in just installing a battery,
Yeah.
right, to get a crew, because obviously that's special engineer, special electrician, special this, special that needs
Right.
to reach certain certifications. And so for it to just be a battery, the only way for that to happen would probably be for it to be like extremely overpriced, extremely fluff. So I mean that's kind of the vibe I've been getting from speaking with some of my installer friends. Obviously, just prepping for NEM 3, right? Things like that. People may want to add batteries down the road, and a lot of them are just like, it's just to install a battery. It just doesn't really make sense financially for that crew.
Right. Isn't that one of the sales pitches that we use, Anthony? And so, we just tell people, okay, if you don't want to get battery now, you can install one later. At least that's what I was.
Right, but you always want to kind of the fine print is we do need to do a minimum system along with that battery.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So that's just kind of the fine print that you want.
So okay. I was just trying to get
it's with
around
most with most installers. So
right. Right.
Yeah,
I have a guy that I use for that specific purpose, and so you got to find somebody prior to, so that okay, yes, I have somebody that can do this later for you. That's what I did. I just have a special.
You may be able to find like an electrician or something that could do that.
Somebody that I networked with, and then they agreed, yes, if you have anybody that wants to do that, as long as the Enphase inverters are on the system already, then they're willing to come in and add batteries later.
Does that cause them to have to reset the NEM program, or is it just an install?
From what I've heard, adding batteries does not force you to change to NEM 3. You can stay on your current NEM agreement and add batteries. Yeah.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
But that brought up something that I wanted to mention, and I saw your hand go up, Doug. I'm definitely going to get to you in a second. But with NEM 3.0, and I know Spencer's going to talk a lot about this when he sees you. With NEM 3.0, according to estimates from CALSA, the California Solar and Storage Association, a solar system with a battery is going to have a shorter payback than a solar system by itself. It seems kind of hard to believe because of the additional cost of that battery, but because of the fact that with NEM 3, most of the time they're giving you very little or almost no credit for backfeeding the energy. You want to store it in the battery and then use that battery energy during the peak period. And lastly, as I mentioned earlier, one of the weird things about NEM 3 is that there are a few hours of the day in September and a few other months, but mainly September, where the export rate is super high, like $3.
Like a couple of dollars,
like $2 to $3 per kilowatt hour.
Yep.
So we're working on a solution where during those times, the system will export solar and battery power as much as it can to the grid during those super high value times and makes money.
Yes.
So that's the code that we're trying to crack. And we will, I'm sure that we will. And that's going to put us in an advantage, I think, compared to other systems on the market that don't have a smart feature like that.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So I guess I just brought that up, Alan, because after NEM 3.0 goes into place, any new systems that you sell, you can in full confidence say you need a battery. Even if you don't want backup power, if that's not a priority, financially, it's a better investment because it will save you significantly more money than solar by itself.
Okay, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. And Doug, how about you?
Can you divulge how much you guys sell your batteries for? The 10K? Is that classified?
I honestly don't even know the exact price because I'm not in sales, I'm in training. So I'm not up to date on the prices. And it does depend on where you buy the battery. All of our equipment is sold through distributors. So
Oh, okay.
distributor A might have a slightly different price than distributor B. But I
Right.
believe because of the buying power of power, you get really good prices on the equipment. And Spencer can be more specific with pricing when you talk to him.
Okay, I'll hold it for him. All right, thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Yeah, so that
Go ahead and ask your question.
that app that you're like the payback of $2 or $3 a kilowatt, they're giving at like 7 o'clock at night. So it may work a month on either side of the summer solstice if you have panels pointing west. Okay, so there's a lot of little things in there you got to know. I understand also the SPAN panel currently works with, I believe it's a Tesla system, and that SPAN and Enphase are working together to allow it to be integrated with Enphase as well. So that's in the cards right now. Are you guys planning on trying to pack some more kilowatt hours into any upcoming batteries? Because the difference between, two 13.5s and three, 10s, that's a lot of extra package. And if we could,
Yeah.
I don't know how hard it is to pack juice into a battery.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for. I mean, if we could do that. I love Enphase, and I hope you guys.
Yeah, I mean I can't or not supposed to give you too much info about the next generation products, but I can just broadly say that they're going to be more energy dense. So the physical size per kilowatt hour is going to shrink a little bit to bring us closer to the footprint of like a Powerwall or NMC battery. So they are going to get a little bit more compact. But more exciting than that is that the power output per kilowatt hour is going to increase significantly. So for like a 10 kilowatt hour battery, the next generation is going to be able to output twice as much power than the current generation. And again, power determines what that system is capable of running continuously and starting up. And that's been an area that we've been a little bit lagging behind in compared to our competitors like Powerwall. They can handle starting surge better than Enphase can today. But with the next generation batteries, I think we're going to shoot a little bit ahead of Powerwall in terms of having enough power. Like that power to energy ratio is going to be a lot higher. Just allow a lot better, more reliable operation, especially for homes that have big loads.
I just had a system where I'm involved in, the house is gutted, okay, they're remodeling everything. Sold the 14K system with two 10K batteries because that's what the customer wanted. There's a 400 main outside feeding two 200 amp sub panels in the house.
Yeah.
And if we don't have it as a whole house system, and they only power one of the sub panels in the garage, then half the lights are going to be out at night. So basically, I said, all right, let's go back. I should have known to talk about this up front, but design didn't, or anybody else along the way. It came down right in my lap at the end. Turned out to be an extra $4,800 adder to run 45 feet of double-aught wire. And, I don't know where else that's supposed to be caught, but this is the job I'm talking about the load controller on, because he's got a sauna, he's got, heat pumps, and then when I look at the heat pumps, they're putting 14 SEER heat pumps in when they could put 24. There's a huge differential. And it's a good thing to know is what is the relationship between natural gas and electricity. Like a therm of gas, which is 100,000 BTUs, there's 29.3 kilowatt hours in that of equivalent BTU. So it's nice to know if you're trying to figure out, hey, should I use a gas heater here or a heat pump, to know those transitions. And there's a lot to learn here. I'm loving learning it, but there's a lot.
There is, for sure.
Anyway, so thank you on the batteries. More power and more efficient power is great. Tony, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank Enphase once we get there. Yeah. All right. Any other questions before we wrap up?
think we're good for now. Oh, I did get a question from Bo. He said, kind of going into NEM 3 and us pretty much having to push batteries through pretty much all our projects at that point in California, at least.
Right.
Is there any plans to, yes, with the efficiency and everything, but with the price? So like, because we're getting double the energy, does that mean the price is doubling, or is there going to be like a nice medium ground where we get this better technology, more efficient, yada yada, and still, it's still price competitive?
Yeah, because it's still a few months out, and
Okay.
I mean, pricing has not really been nailed down. It's probably not going to be much different, to be honest. Either cheaper or significantly more expensive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, just have to leave it at that. It's not really known at this moment. Yeah.
Of course. Okay.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for having me. Feel free to email me questions. And if you do that, Anthony, please copy Spencer so he's visibility over the questions.
Yeah.
And be happy to get back to you with answers. And like I said, I will figure out what the right answer is for span and get back to you on that.
All right. Thank you very much, Tony. We also thank you for Spencer. Okay.
You're welcome, guys.
Awesome.
Have a great day.
Awesome, guys. Thank you guys so much.
Okay.
All right. Well, you guys have a good rest of your afternoon. I think I need to connect with a couple of you guys after this call, so we'll connect and then I'll go from there.